Washington mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. And AM 630. WMAL.
8:37 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Brian Wilson, Larry O'Connor, joined on the line by our good friend Larry Kudlow, host of the Kudlow Report on CNBC, and the Larry Kudlow Show, which can be heard here on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m. Larry, always a pleasure to have you. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning.
All right, we hear that the president is going to name his chief of staff, Jack Lew, to be the next Treasury Secretary. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I do have some thoughts on that. I think it's a weak appointment. I think that's point number one. This is not a guy with a big reputation in financial circles. I mean, he worked for a couple years at Citibank. He, by the way, worked in the proprietary trading end, which got everybody into so much trouble. He's never been fingered for it, but he worked there a few years, made a whole bunch of millions of dollars doing it, and went back into politics. I mean, it was one of those sort of quick hit-and-run things using your connections. I don't think he has a lot of respect on Wall Street. I mean, names like Larry Fink, Blackstone, or BlackRock, rather, come to mind, or certainly Irwin Bowles. I don't think Lew's going to be greeted very well. He's a very strong, left-liberal Obama partisan, a very poor negotiator. In fact, many people point to Lew as the problem in many of the negotiations we've had in the last couple years.
Well, and as chief of staff for the president, his job right now is to sort of run interference, do damage control, control access to the president. I mean, he's the president's right-hand man. He's there to do whatever the president wants. It's hardly an autonomous person to head up Treasury.
Right, I agree with that. And he doesn't have an autonomous reputation. The only guy who came out of that made a lot of sense was James Baker, who was Reagan's chief of staff. But Jim Baker had been a banker and a lawyer. He had served on a bank board for many years down in Texas and turned out to be a grade 1, grade A Treasury Secretary. Very effective. I don't think Lew is anything close to that, and I say it's going to be a very disappointing appointment.
Well, it's not looking real good for the president's appointments right now because Chuck Hagel is catching some flack. There are some people who have concerns about John Brennan to be the next director of the CIA, and now you're saying some things about Jack Lew that don't sound too flattering.
Yeah, I mean, we had hoped for something different, somebody who was really sensitive to the financial markets, somebody with some knowledge of the financial markets, some knowledge of the currency exchange rate issues, some international knowledge to negotiate in Europe and elsewhere. This is not the right guy. I don't want. This is not personal. I don't know Mr. Lew. Okay, I just want to say that it's not personal, but I do follow it politically, professionally, analytically. This is not the guy that we want. Look, you got some brutal stuff coming up here. Brutal. You got the debt ceiling. You got the spending sequester. You're probably going to have another tax fight. I mean, he's just, this is not the guy with stature to put in that job. I just don't understand it. Well, I do understand it. It's pure power, left-wing politics.
Larry Kudlow is our guest. Of course, he is the very popular Kudlow Report on CNBC. In fact, it's almost as popular as an Alabama quarterback's girlfriend. That's how popular his show is.
I was kind of rooting for Notre Dame.
Hey, by the way, Larry, can we just once and for all, I mean, you're objective about this. Who is the more insufferable football fan, the Bama fans or the Notre Dame fans?
I don't know. Bravo to both. Bravo to both.
A political answer. We're getting some insight into the fiscal cliff negotiations from last week, and what the end result was, of course, we all know, but we're now getting some of the details. And apparently during one exchange, according to the Wall Street Journal, John Boehner and Barack Obama were having a one-on-one, and Barack Obama looked John Boehner square in the eyes, Larry Kudlow, and said, "We don't have a spending problem." Is this basically pretty enlightening about the president's philosophy about government and where we stand right now in the United States of America?
The word I would probably use is moronic. I don't think I'd use enlightening. I think it goes to show you the gap that still exists in the perception and the policy of Mr. Obama and the rest of the world. And look, you have this very important issue here. A year ago, go back into 2011, all right, everybody voted for an increase in the debt ceiling. That was whatever it was over $1 trillion for 1 year. And that increase in the debt ceiling was predicated on this deficit commission that was supposed to come up with a like-minded amount of spending cuts, which was $1.2 trillion that never occurred. So they're down one sequester.
Yeah.
We've already raised the ceiling, and they didn't give the spending cuts. Now, Mr. Boehner, quite rightly, in my opinion, is saying, you want another debt ceiling increase? I want dollar for dollar. Dollar debt, a lower dollar of spending. So they're behind the eight ball. They've got to come back and figure out this spending sequester from last year and then do another trillion or whatever for this year in order to justify another debt ceiling increase. They're nowhere near that. I mean, Democrats are talking about another $1 trillion of tax increases.
Right.
That's just out of control. That just misses the whole point. And so that's how far apart we are right now. Now, I don't think government shutdown is the answer. I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor of threatening America's credit quality with a no debt ceiling. What I'm in favor of is getting the spending sequester done and then moving on and doing a second piece, which hopefully will include discretionary and entitlements. That's what I want.
Wait, so you're in favor of the sequester?
I totally favor the sequester.
Yeah, me too.
I have favored it from day one, and I'm not afraid of the defense cuts. By the way, those defense cuts are national security cuts. That's the way it is. It can come out of Homeland Security, and it can come out of other national security-related agencies. It doesn't have to be DOD.
But why cut national security when right there in your state of New York you've got people on EBT going to strip clubs with their extra cash?
You might want to take a look at that. That's a very good point. You might want to take a look at why welfare recipients are using their cash to go to pornography parlors, bars, liquor, and...
well, I know why they're doing it. I just don't know why they're allowed to do it.
Yeah, well, we might want to have a look at that. We might want to slash that back. By the way, when you remove the work requirements for welfare, this may be one of the penalties for that. People say that food stamps are in the same boat, that people are cashing in their food stamps and spending it on things, shall we say, other than food. All these smaller entitlements should be looked at. All of them could stand some reforms. Obviously, the big health care entitlements likewise. I mean, you have spending. Look, go to Tom Coburn's spending book. The guy's got a book, I don't know what his number is, he's got over $1 trillion worth of waste, fraud, and abuse. Why don't we go there and stick that into the next spending sequester?
Tom Coburn's
Instead
book?
of talking about more tax hikes.
That book is as long as his occasional beard, Larry Kudlow.
Yeah, well, he's a good man.
He is.
Coburn. He's a good man. He's a personal friend. But
Larry, we got to roll, Larry. We're out of time. You know we always are right at the 45 mark. Thanks for joining us, Larry Kudlow from Kudlow Report on CNBC. And, of course, the Larry Kudlow Show right here on WMAL, Saturdays at 7.